Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori. Today we are going to continue the ruthless shelf by shelf unhaul that I started a few months ago, where I pulled off a bunch of books from my shelves that I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about. I made a big pile of them, and I did episode 1 of this a little while ago to start going through that stack and figuring out if the books deserve to stay on my shelves or if they are going to join the unhaul pile. Last time I unhauled all 5 of the books that I taste tested in the video, which honestly I do not regret. I feel really good about it. I felt like I made the right decision on all of them, and I'm here to tackle a new stack of 5 books. So of the books that I have pulled, I did a random number generator and I came up with this lovely stack right here. We've got a pretty diverse group of books for us today, and I'm just going to sit back, relax, do a little bit of taste testing, and we will see if any of these books end up going back on my shelves or if they end up added to the unhaul pile. The way this is going to work is that I will taste test each of these books. I'm going to give it maybe 50 plus pages-ish to see how I feel about the writing style, how I feel about the story, and actually give these books a decent chance at getting back on my shelves. If I am not feeling the book, or I can just tell that it's not going to be something for me, then it's going to get added to the unhaul pile and be moved along to someone who will hopefully enjoy it a lot more than me. So the first book that I want to tackle in this video is Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. This is a book that I've heard a lot of really good things about, and I honestly just don't know how I'm going to feel about it, but it was one that I've been waffling back on quite a lot in the last year or two. So I'm going to get comfy. I've got my blanket, I've got my beverage of choice, and we're going to start with Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. This is meant for younger readers. I believe it's sort of a fairy tale-esque adventure story, which I'm very excited to check out, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. So it's about time that I find out. Before we get started reading this book, I would just like to say that the interior of this book is absolutely beautiful. There are all of these illustrations, the chapter headings have little designs by them. It's really beautiful, and I appreciate books that take the time to make the interior really lovely. So I got interrupted yesterday, but it is day 2 and I am going to get a little bit farther in Where the Mountain Meets the Moon today. It's cute so far, I will say. I'm only about 20 pages in, but it is very cute. So yeah, but I decided I'd come outside because, you know, vitamin D and fresh air and stuff. Yeah, let's read. Okay, so I am about 60 pages in to Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, and this is really cute so far. It's got that kind of fairy tale vibe to it that sometimes I like and sometimes I have a harder time with it. Fairy tales are kind of hit or miss for me usually. It's really dependent on how they're told. But I don't know, this one's intriguing to me and I kind of want to finish it. So I think this is going to be my first reader unhaul book that's going to go back on the shelf, or I might just finish it. I might just read it. So we're following Minley, who is a young girl in a village, and her father keeps telling her these stories and her mother thinks it's all a bunch of ridiculous rubbish, and Minley's getting all of these stories put in her head and the idea that she can change her family's fortune if she goes to a mountain and talks to the old man in the moon. And so she's going off on this adventure to try to change her family's fortune. Her parents come after her to find her and bring her home because obviously their daughter left and they're both freaking out, mother more than the father. But yeah, it's cute so far. I like the way that it's being written. The illustrations are really cute. So yeah, I think this one's gonna stay on the shelf. Alright guys, so the second book we're gonna try for this vlog is 24 Shadows by Tanya J. Peterson. So this one makes me a little bit nervous, even though I really want to try it, because it's a story about someone who has dissociative identity disorder and his like discovery in adulthood that that's what's been going on and the reason behind all of the bizarre things that are happening to him. So this one might be hard for me to read, which is why I haven't read it yet and why it's on this list, but I do want to try it because I'm always on the lookout for stories about people with dissociative disorders that are actually decent, because the media does a fantastic job of sensationalizing or vilifying that dissociative identity disorder specifically. So we are going to see how we feel about it. Wish me luck. Alright guys, so I got through the first chapter. It's pretty like heavy-handed in the way that it's laying out the story and our main character Isaac's life, and it's starting out with him having a more noticeable episode with his family members and starting to freak out about it a little bit. The writing style is pretty rough, I'm not gonna lie. It's very clunky, which is making it hard to immerse at all in the story because the writing style is really pulling me out of it. I don't think it's bad so far in terms of it's sharing a story that feels realistic. It's just pretty heavy-handed and the writing is not helping it at all. So I think I'm gonna read another chapter or two, but I'm not loving the writing style at all right now. Alright guys, so I'm in chapter 2. The writing is so bad, you guys. It's really bad. Like I hate saying that, but it really is. The way that the story is being told, I don't think is doing any service to the characters or the message that she's trying to get across, and it's just kind of bothering me at this point. I don't love the way she's exploring this, and I know that this is based on the experiences of a real person, so I'm not trying to diminish that in any way, shape, or form. I just think that the execution of the story is not doing it any favors. So I think at this point I'm 30 pages in. I don't know that I want to keep reading at this point, which is fine. So this is going to be my first unhaul for the vlog. I think I'm going to go back inside for the rest of the vlog because it's really hot out here. I did get a little bit of sunshine and I didn't melt, so there's that. That's always a positive. So let's go back inside and check out the next book.
You want to say hi?
Alright, pause. Plot twist. So I actually did end up finishing 24 Shadows yesterday. I ended up binging through the entire thing because you know how when you're reading a book and you just are so convinced that there's no way it can possibly go that wrong, and you're searching for any kind of glimmer of hope somewhere in the book? That was me with this book, and I felt almost obligated to finish this book, partially because once I started talking about it, I knew that there's a lot of people that are interested in discovering more about different disorders and mental illnesses. It's important to me to share my opinion of this book. So this story follows a man, like I said before, who is diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder in this book, and it follows him and his family adjusting to the diagnosis and going through a lot of really heavy things. And there's just enough truth in this book to make it seem super positive. The writing style is pretty atrocious through the entire thing. But what really made me angry was some of the things that the author was trying to normalize in this book that I felt were incredibly harmful. And I would never, ever, ever recommend this book to somebody who's like, I want to know what DID is like. Only because while there are some very true things in here and a lot of the information about the disorder itself is correct, the way that certain coping mechanisms are handled, or the way that the therapist in the story recommends things that, in my opinion, are absolutely disgusting and appalling for someone who is struggling through childhood trauma memories. Yeah, it really, really made me angry, to be honest, and I wanted to include that. I almost didn't talk about it anymore. I almost deleted the footage from the first few rounds of me reading this book, but I thought it was really important for me to say something about it because I don't want somebody picking up this book thinking, oh, all of the stuff in here is what you should do to support and take care of somebody with DID, because there are some things in here that are incredibly, incredibly problematic and harmful, and I wanted to say that. That was important. So, I'm going to put this book down officially now. I have read the entire thing. I gave it 1 star, because while there were some positives in here, it is very harmful in a lot of ways. So, we're putting this away now, and we're unhauling that. And we're going to move to something a little bit nicer. We're going to move to The Beast Player by Naoko Uehashi. This is a book that I have had for probably 4 or 5 years. It's one of the first books I bought from Book Outlet when I started my channel, or at least within the first year, I think, because I loved the cover. I've shown this on so many videos. I love this cover to bits and pieces. And I've always been kind of scared not to love what's inside it. So we're going to finally put it to the test. We're not hiding from it anymore, guys. We're gonna take the plunge. We're gonna try this book and we're gonna see how we feel about it. Okay, can I also just say I appreciate when books have beautiful explanatory illustrations in them. This is really beautiful on the inside as well as the outside. I'm actually, okay, oh, the inside cover, the hardcover, has like a really soft design in it that's really pretty. I don't know if that's picking up on camera. Anyways, I'm going to stop procrastinating by talking about how pretty this book is, and we're going to try reading it. Oh, I had a $1 bill bookmark in here from sometime. Cool. So basically we have a young girl whose mother is a beast steward of these mighty, like, dragon type creatures called the Toda. And in the very first few pages of the book, they are, some of these very prized dragons are killed by something. And that's as far as I've gotten so far, but the writing and dialogue is a little clunky, I'm not gonna lie, which I kind of expected, if I'm being totally honest. But the world building just in the first chapter is very unique, and I really love the way that the dragons are kind of sea and land creatures, and they are more in their element in the water, but they're also ridden on land. There's some cool things happening with the dragons in here. I'm also very curious to see what kind of larger conflict this generates. But I'm definitely going to keep going. That was like the first 10 pages. So let's see what the rest of it looks like. Okay, so I'm about 40 pages into this, and the writing is a little bit rough. Like, we're switching from third person to first person a little bit, and some of the motives for the conflict that happens right away in the beginning of the book feels a bit rushed. Like, I don't know exactly why it happened, and it's not that I'm needing all the answers at the beginning, But even when answers are given, they seem kind of rushed almost. And when the author is explaining things, it's hard to understand, if that makes any sense. The world building is intriguing though, and she's using a lot of cool lore and history and kind of Eastern world dragon influence, which I really like. So I don't know about this one yet, you guys. I'll probably give it another chapter or two before I decide for sure, but it's not grabbing me the way I was hoping that it would. So we'll see how it goes in the next chapter. Okay guys, so somehow my video clip that told you the final thoughts on the Beast Player disappeared. I don't know if I forgot to hit record or if it got deleted somehow, but anyways, my final thoughts on the Beast Player were that I did decide to unhaul it. I like some aspects of this, but ultimately I just felt like the execution of the story was not immersive or well written enough for me to really commit to it. It'll probably work a lot better for somebody else, but for me this was just not enough to want to keep reading, which is a big shame because I love this cover so much, but I don't feel like the story inside is written well enough to convince me to keep it just for the cover. So this will be my second unhaul for the video. Alright guys, the next book that we are going to taste test is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. So the reason this book is in the stack of I don't know how I feel about it books is because I do enjoy the films. I think that Mama T-Rex is the best part of the Jurassic Park franchise without competition. And I don't know how I feel about the story in book form. Like, I don't know how that's going to translate for me yet. And I think it's really going to depend on the writing style and whether or not this is just a plot-driven book about dinosaurs, or if it's something a little bit deeper than that and it's going to be something that will let me actually immerse in the story. So we're going to read Jurassic Park. I have to say, you guys, it is really nice to be getting back to this video finally. It's been about a week since my last entry, and I've been really busy with other stuff, and it just feels really nice to grab a random book and taste test again. Okay, so this is really interesting because the prologue reads very much like a mystery thriller, which I know there is like a mystery of sorts at the heart of Jurassic Park. Hello, Novia. Would you like to say hi? You say hi to everybody? What do you think? Oh my goodness. But anyway, as I was saying, there is definitely a kind of mystery thriller vibe to this that I'm already enjoying. And the way that the main character, Bobby the doctor, is introduced, she's interesting already. There's little bits that are piquing my interest already, even in the prologue. There are a couple of things in the prologue that I feel like are they're pretty specific, and they haven't really aged well. However, overall, I'm intrigued and I'm curious to see what happens next. The writing style of this almost reminds me a little bit of Stephen King, not necessarily what's happening, but just I can tell that this is from a similar era to some of the bits and pieces of Stephen King that I've read, just in terms of the way it's written. Very different authors, obviously. It was just something that I noticed right away while I was reading. Okay, so there's a bunch of lizards that attacked a newborn baby. Lizards, right? And the midwife, first of all, the baby is in a separate room from the mother, brand new. First problem. Second of all, The midwife decides she doesn't want to report what actually happened to the baby because she might get in trouble. So the midwife decides that she's going to lie on the report because she doesn't want to get in trouble for leaving the baby unguarded in a room separate from its mother, first of all. And second, she tells the mother and puts on the report that the baby just asphyxiated. And apparently, the mother is just like, okay. As a mother and as a doula, I'm having a really hard time wrapping my head around this whole situation because it's just so unrealistic. Like, we haven't even gotten to the official dinosaurs yet, and I'm like, okay, but this doesn't make any sense. What mother is just gonna, like, not see their child or not ask questions or just be like, oh, okay, I completely accept your explanation, not having seen the baby? I don't know if I can make it past that, you guys. Which is a bummer because I'm not hating it otherwise. I'm just like, what? Also, I did notice in the prologue that Michael Crichton talks about the doctor that we get introduced to having seen a young child mauled by a dog in her time as a doctor. And he specifically mentions that it was a Rottweiler dog, which I was like, you could have just said dog. You could have just said dog. But no, we're going to further some stereotypes while we're at it. It'll be fine. Anyways, I'm going to try to read a couple more chapters and just see. But there's a few things in the people side of this story that I'm just not buying at all. And like I said, we haven't even gotten to the dinosaurs yet. If the dinosaurs end up being more realistic than the people, I guess. Alright, I will say, so I've gotten to kind of the end of the first part in the book, and I will say, jumping from person to person to person in really short chapters, it's working okay, but it's a bit much. I know that the author's trying to give us a lot of, like, perspectives on the whole issue and getting kind of a 360 view. I think with a book like this, where it does jump around POVs so much, you can't immerse into a character. You have to immerse into the conflict itself and what's pulling all these characters together, which isn't a bad thing. And I don't feel like that's difficult in this book. I have definitely read books that are way more jarring in their POV switches than this one, but I'm still not sure how I feel about it. Okay, so they're tying some things together now, and we're getting closer to the dinosaurs, I think. And one of the things that I do find really interesting about this is the concept that people are so willing to deny what's right under their noses if they firmly believe that it could not be true. Like, with this whole situation ramping up, obviously at some point we're going to get to the dinosaurs. And the people who are getting glimpses and clues about it are just so, like, there's no way it could possibly be a dinosaur. So they're coming up with every possible other explanation. They're like, oh, joking about how, well, I guess this could be a baby dinosaur, ha ha ha, you know. And I just think it's an interesting spotlight on how people's perceptions and perspectives can be so specifically tunnel visioned that they cannot see the reality of what's right in front of them sometimes. I'm not disliking this so far, you guys. I'm about 50 pages in, 45, 50 pages in, and I kind of want to keep reading. I do find myself interested in the central storyline with discovering the dinosaurs. And obviously, like I mentioned before, there's a few things about some of the minor character setups that I'm not loving. However, I do think I want to keep reading this. I do love an unhaul. I love getting space on my shelves, but I also don't want to drop a book just because I'm trying to unhaul. I want to give it a chance. And I feel like this is a book which surprises me because I wasn't sure I was going to like it. This one strikes me as a book that I might want to actually finish reading. I'm curious at this point. I'm not like, wow, this is the most amazing thing, but I am definitely curious about how the story is going to unfold, how he is going to handle writing about the larger scale conflict of, by the way, there's dinosaurs on this island and they're, you know, eating people. No big deal. So yeah, I'm curious. I think this one's gonna stay, guys. I think this one's gonna get added to the want to keep reading this pile, which means that we have now unhauled 2 of the 5 books, and we've also decided to keep 2. So the tiebreaker is next, and I'm really excited about that one too. But I'm actually pleasantly surprised that I want to keep reading this. And it's a quick read. I mean, it literally took me 30 minutes to get through like 50 pages of the book. It's a fast read. It's a little bit mystery-esque, definitely from an older style. I'm trying to remember what year this came out. So this came out in 1990. So I definitely feel like the writing style and the way the story's being told gives that era of storytelling. And probably explains why there's a few things in here that haven't aged particularly well. I'm not mad at it so far. So I'm going to put this in the keep stack, and I'm going to finish reading Jurassic Park at some point in the near future, maybe. All right, the next one and the last one is an anthology that I backed a Kickstarter for a while ago. And the only reason this book is in this stack is because short stories are really hit or miss for me. And I would say they do tend to lean more toward the miss side than the hit side, unfortunately. However, there are some really big names in this book, and I'm intrigued. I really want to see what these assassin short stories look like, because that's the theme of the entire anthology. And it is an absolutely beautiful book. I know I've shown it to you guys before, but like, we've got some beautiful artwork in here. The naked hardcover is really beautiful. There's illustrations all over in this book, and the opening section of each short story is absolutely beautiful. So I am going into this anticipating wanting to keep it. It was just one of those things that I wanted to put it on this stack and try a few of the short stories and see what I thought. The thing that worries me a little bit about anthologies like this is oftentimes there are short stories written within worlds by the authors that already exist, and it can feel a little bit like you're being held out of the experience just because you haven't read the official bigger series that it's connected to. So hopefully that won't be the case, because that's one of the main reasons why I bounce off of fantasy short stories a lot. But I don't know what's in here, and I don't know what to expect. So we're going to start and see what we got and see if it's going to stay in my house on my shelf or if it's going to move on to a new home. Okay guys, so I'm actually starting this book now. It's been a wild couple of days and we are getting ready to go on a camping trip this weekend, so I'm actually going to start reading now. And I'm actually very excited because the first story in here is of Royce and Hadrian from the Rhyria Chronicles by Michael J. Sullivan, which I'm excited for because it means that I'm starting the book back in with some characters that I already know and love. Which is awesome. So that's a good start. Alright guys, so I got through about 2/3 of the first short story in here, and I'm not a big fan. I did not like the writing style very much in this, and I didn't really feel like I wanted to finish it. So I am going to move on to the second story, which is by Jonathan French. And just see, I know M.L. Wong is in here and Bryce O'Connor, and there's quite a few authors in here that I have read and really enjoyed in the past. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else that I'm familiar with. Marie Brennan. So anyways, there's some really high level authors in here, and I'm excited to try them all. This one's trickier than the novels because instead of being written by one author, I almost have to give each of the short stories in the book a try to see how I like the anthology overall, because I don't want to judge really harshly on one story and then find out later on that there are some really, really good ones and I just hadn't gotten to them yet. So I actually think that I'm going to keep this one for now and come back to it and try some more of the short stories in the near future, because I just don't feel right unhauling this if I don't like one or two of the short stories. I'd rather taste test all of them and then see how I feel about it overall. And if I still am not a huge fan of all of the stories, then I'll probably let go of it at that point. But I feel okay about keeping this one for now, just to make sure, because I don't want to let it go prematurely and then have missed out on a bunch of really great author short stories. So I think this is going to be the end of my second Read It or Unhaul It vlog, and I actually still feel really good about it, even though we're keeping 3 of the books in this stack, because I feel comfortable keeping those books, and I'm glad that I got 2 more books off of the shelves and I can send them on to homes where they will be more appreciated. I'm still not entirely sure what I'm gonna do with this one, if I'm being totally honest. I'll be unhauling The Beast Player and also 24 Shadows and Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, Jurassic Park, and When Swords Fall Silent will be going back on the shelves for me to re-engage with at a later date. And I do feel pretty good about this, you guys. I am always hoping to find more books to unhaul to get more space on the shelves, but I also don't want to rush through the unhaul and get rid of books that I potentially might enjoy. And I feel like the 3 that I'm keeping are genuinely books that I can see myself enjoying trying again down the road. I would still consider this a very successful reader unhaul, and I would be curious to know down in the comments below if you were surprised by any of my picks. If you've read any of the books, let me know what experience you've had with them. And if you are interested at any point in checking out books that I have for sale, I do have a Pango Books account down in the description box below, so you can check that out if you're interested in seeing what I have listed at any given time. So that is all from me today. I hope you guys enjoy these videos. I actually really love doing these reader unhaul challenges because it gives me a chance to switch up my TBR a little bit during the month and taste test some new books, and also work through my shelves and make more space, which is always a positive. So that is all from me today. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. I hope you are reading some 5-star reads, and I will see you in the next video.